Welcome back to another edition of the Founder Spotlight. Today with me is the founder of Hop the Wave, Alan Lapoint. Welcome, Alan. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So you've had a pretty impressive career. We were talking a little bit about this offline in manufacturing with companies like Strainwright and 1820 Brewing. So what kind of inspired that shift to focus on the THC, CBD infused beverage industry?
Yeah, well, give you a little more background too on myself. So the Strainwright Companies is a liquid filtration separation company. I've been involved with this company for over 30 years as the leader of the business, and then purchased Gary Brewing Company back in 2017. So Gary Brewing Company is the 13th, one of the original 13 craft breweries in the U.S. with federal brewers license number 13. So that kind of got us into the whole beverage packaging, brewing type of environment industry. And when we took over, my wife and I, we kind of looked at the business and all the creativity and the innovation that really came out of the brewery, because it was the first English style brewery in the US, especially East Coast and the East Coast. So we kind of harnessed a lot of that and said, let's keep an eye on consumer trends. What are people wanting to do to celebrate life and how they want to celebrate life? So the first evolution of the brewery began as became 1820 Brewing Company. So 1820 Brewing Company is a non-alcoholic beer. So kind of in conjunction with people that came to the tap room to want to celebrate and have fun, there was also a group of people like, we're the driver, or we're kind of sober curious, and, we drink, but we also drink non-alcoholic products. So that's how we kind of went down the non-alcoholic beverage path. So we kind of had to change our philosophy. We had to change our facility to comply with food safety laws, FDA compliance laws. So very different than just being a craft brewery. So we invested in tunnel pasteurization, and that was one of the biggest investments we've made in a very long time. But it actually allowed us to make very, very high quality, shelf-stable, non-alcoholic products. So as we started to see the evolution of the THC beverages, we looked at being a cannabis facility as well. Hemp then became a little bit more prevalent. It seemed to have a larger appeal. You could ship it interstate commerce. So there was a bigger market in that area. So we kind of went down the hemp direction of hemp-derived D9 beverages. That's kind of how it got us to where we're at today with Hop the Wave. And we also co-pack. So we're a co-packer for other brands that do mocktails and seltzers and things like that. It was kind of a natural evolution as we kept listening to our clients and how they were celebrating life and the different things they wanted to experience. It just was a natural evolution for us.
Yeah. And so, you mentioned a lot of your background in manufacturing, and so how has that influenced the way that you approach quality control and consistency? Because you mentioned that's a key factor for Hop the Wave.
Yeah. The most important thing, without a doubt, when you're dealing with non-alcoholic beverages is the food safety. I mean, quality comes first, food safety comes first. My background and the background of a lot of the people that I have working in the other company understand pharmaceutical processing. We're GMP facilities, so we understand how to make sure we have proper documentation, but we deal with a lot of laboratories as well for food safety. So we actually took the knowledge that we had at our other company, brought it down to the brewery so that we made sure that not only that it's food safe, but you're preserving the quality of the product. So, we do a lot of tunnel pasteurization as opposed to using preservatives in our products. So being like a whole food type of compliant, because we're not using those types of ingredients. So making more all natural, really fresh tasting products, but you need to have an understanding of food safety. And that's probably the biggest challenge most people have converting from alcoholic beverages to these types of beverages, understanding that process. And then when you get into tunnel pasteurization, there's a lot of other areas that you have to be concerned with oxidation, having too much oxygen in your product. So then during the process of high temperatures, you can change the organics. So the flavors that you have in there or the natural ingredients that you have that can oxidize. So that balance and understanding the food chemistry side has been a really big advantage for us to make sure that not only we're producing the highest quality, we're an iced tea brand, but also helping those other brands with that we're doing mocktails for to make sure that their formulas look right. They come from either formulators and process authorities, and then we do microbial studies to make sure there's stability in the product itself. So quality is by far the number one, because the one thing that can affect this industry the most in a negative way is that people put out a product that's not high quality, that's not food safe. So we go to really, really detail in looking at formulas and making sure process authorities are in line and making sure pasteurization studies have been done on the product to make sure it's food safe.
Yeah. And so let's keep the focus here on Hop the Wave specifically. You have, what would you say is the key mission and values of the brand?
Yeah, the key mission of the brand is to really provide products that allow people to celebrate life in the way that they choose to celebrate. So it's about choice. It's giving people a choice that if you want to have a Hop the Wave product, which is an iced tea that's infused with hemp-derived Delta-9 and CBD, that we offer that product. At the same time, it's part of a family of products where if you want to celebrate and you're sober curious with NA beer, we've got that option as well. And if you're a diehard craft beer person, we've got one of the more traditional craft breweries, really unique open fermentation with closed fermentation, brewing equipment that came over in the 1985. So our whole philosophy as an organization is to provide the consumer with options on how they want to celebrate life and how they want to enjoy life. So now today it's D9. I think at some point we're probably going to have mocktail products that don't have D9 in it, and that people will blend that. So we're not trying to push any particular type of philosophy. We're listening to customers and trying to meet them where they are. And I think that makes us a little bit different than most people, because you have to design your production facility around that flexibility. So you need to be flexible to move on a dime from one product category to another product category if that's where the market is wanting to meet us and our brands.
Yeah. And so you mentioned earlier the 1820 Brewing focuses on non-alcoholic beers. Obviously you have a hemp D9 product line as well. And I know there's a lot of conversations around merging those two categories, but the technology is very hard to get right, is what I've learned. I don't know exactly why. So one, could you kind of talk to us about why that's difficult? And then two, do you guys have any intention of merging those two categories?
Yeah, so we do have intentions of doing it at some point. Current regulations don't allow with the TTB to have any ingredients in there outside of your own state. If you're doing it within your state that you produce in, then you have to look at your state laws. But as soon as you go to interstate commerce now, the TTB would get involved, and they don't approve any hemp beverage, any hemp-derived products to be placed into NA beer or obviously regular alcoholic products as well. So both of those are, you really can't do that aspect of it, but we have blended them together. So the hard part is from our perspective is creating a product that tastes really good is half the battle. So we do it in a way that we actually do it as a true brewing process. So we use the four main ingredients with hops, yeast, malts, and water. We fully attenuate the product, but what we do is we try to adjust our mash-in temperatures and our pH so that we don't get too much fermentable sugars in the what we call wort. And that's the process that you come out of the mash tun laundry, go into a kettle. So that's a really critical part. So your mash-in temperatures, your pHs, the type of water you're using, because you want to create body and mouthfeel as well. So we do it, again, we've been brewing for over 40 years. So we've got fantastic brewers that understand that process. We do it as a normal brewing process for beer. Then we put it in, we put a special yeast in. We let the yeast fully attenuate so that we don't ever go above 0.5%, but you now start to get those other flavor characteristics of the body of a good quality beer. So that's half the battle. So getting there is really what took us a while to get there. And we actually had help as well with consultants that came in and advised us on, okay, look at doing this, look at doing that. But then the other half is how do you make it safe and stable and shelf stable. And that's where my background really came in and understanding. So we don't do a vacuum distillation where you're separating alcohol from the ingredients. We don't do membrane separation. We do a full brewing. But then you've got a product that you either you're going to have to put preservatives in, or you're going to have to tunnel pasteurize. Tunnel pasteurization is by far the best, most effective way, because you're making sure that nothing in the can can affect anyone consuming the product, and the can is sealed up. So nothing else can get in there. So we chose to go in that direction. It's very expensive, but it's by far probably the best technology for preserving, for what we call flavor preservation and shelf stability. So that's where we put a lot of our focus on 1820. So combining that, we've already combined it in our experiments with putting in hemp-derived delta-9 CBD emulsions. Works out great. It's a fantastic tasting product. Unfortunately, right now we've decided to kind of hold back and wait for the regulations to really determine if that's a product that can be shipped interstate commerce.
1820. Do you guys have like a core lineup of beers that you guys have?
Yeah, we've got 7 main brands. So we've got, obviously, everyone has to come up with a New England IPA. So that was one of the first ones we did. We have a New England IPA. We have an American Pale Ale. We have a blonde. We have a Vienna Stout, Vienna Lager. We've got a stout. We've got a really, really good raspberry. So it's kind of like a tart, not so much a sour, but it has a nice little tart flavor that you would get from a raspberry. We do a wit beer as well. And those are our core products that are on the shelves, and it's a direct to consumer, so we ship all over the country. I think there's only a couple states that we can't ship to, and we're in all the box stores in Maine where we're home located. So it's been a great growing area. It's one of the few areas in the malt beverage category for domestics and craft that's really growing. So it's a good place to be right now.
And so I have two follow-up questions on that. One, is Florida one of the states that you're able to ship to?
We can ship to Florida.
Cool. And then 2, you guys have a tap room in Portland?
We do, right at 38 Evergreen Drive. It's not a huge one, but we do have a very large beer garden. So on a beautiful day, we'll get large groups of people kind of grabbing beer and sitting outside and playing different lawn games and sitting and enjoying the beer garden itself.
I'm making a note here to book a trip to Portland so I can come check out the beer garden.
It's a great time. We've had a fantastic fall. It's been beautiful.
Love that. My wife was just up there probably about a month and a half ago, so she probably got the very, very beginning of fall. Not so much the beautiful leaves changing yet, but
yeah, she was lucky.
Yeah. So kind of coming back to Hop Away here, as I was doing some research for the interview here, education and transparency were very evident across pretty much all platforms. Obviously, you've mentioned it a few times here. So let's stick with education specifically. So what strategies are you guys using to address consumer misconceptions around THC and CBD, as well as like hemp versus the regulated market, and how you that? You kind of already mentioned how.
That's a great question.
But
yeah, that's a fantastic question, because the biggest challenge nationally is education and people understanding what the product is. I feel like if I was alive during Prohibition, as far as really feeling Prohibition and coming out of Prohibition, how do you educate people on alcohol and how to handle alcohol and how to manage alcohol and where it's from type of thing? Because this is a brand new for most people, the whole D9, because it is the same cannabinoid you would find in a cannabis plant. It's just from an industrial hemp plant. So there's communication of, is that legal, or how is that legal? So we share with our distribution partners, we share through the internet, we have videos where we kind of go over how it's different, and from the standpoint of why it's legal versus cannabis, which is more state regulated. And that's probably the biggest challenge by far. So when we're on the shelves at places, we'll have little shelf talkers. I talk a little bit about the brand, a little bit about the difference between hemp and the cannabis industry. Again, the plants are obviously very similar. And they produce the same exact cannabinoids. They just don't produce them in the same ratios, in the same percentages. Yep. And that's what will define the difference. So I'm trying to explain to somebody that as long as it's below 0.3% by dry weight volume, it's kind of like they most people wouldn't get that either, because they wouldn't understand that. So it's basically we try to just let people know that it's an industrial hemp plant, and the transparency aspect from how we view it is really about making sure we do the testing and the certifications, and do at the minimum with the cannabis industry, but in many cases we do more depending on which state you're in. So every single batch that we make will have a batch number on the bottom of the can. And that batch number you would use when you go into our website, where the QR code is actually on every can. You can get to all the laboratory results. And we have laboratory results on not just the first time we ever produce it. Every single time we produce a new batch, that batch goes through a 7-panel test for metals, pesticides, solvents, potency, and 3 different tests just for microbial analysis. So there's no skimping there. Like we might not be as regulated as a requirement by each state, but that doesn't matter to us because of the importance of the quality of the product and that this is for human consumption. We feel that everybody should be doing that as the minimum. If there are additional things that people should be doing, they absolutely. And we have full traceability. So we have a third party certification for GMP. So we have good manufacturing practice certification. What that does as well is that if anyone ever wanted to come and audit our facility, we have all of our ingredients listed on every single batch record with the lot number from the ingredients. So I can trace all the way back to where that hemp plant was actually harvested, not just the emulsion supplier, but the emulsion suppliers who supplied the distillate before they emulsified it. So, from our standpoint, that's part of the transparency. We want people to know everything that we're doing. It's open to people coming and visiting. We're very transparent that way because I do think the reliability and the consistency of the product is what's going to help this category really grow, and people can rely that when they pick a can up. And so that's what we do. So you grab a can of Hop the Wave, you can look on our website, you'll know everything about it. We always focus on, before we even got into this industry, flavor was the most important, along with flavor and safety were the two biggest things that we worried about the most. So you're getting a great product that tastes really good. I mean, if you don't have that, and unfortunately in this industry, I think we've seen some people put together products and they're just trying to hit the market quick. They're not looking at the flavor. They're not looking at, maybe how to minimize the burn of some of the cannabinoids. If you put too much in there, some states allow a lot. We don't ever put more than 5 milligrams in any of our cans, no matter where it's going. We feel strongly about this is a microdose amount. This is really to get people introduced to the hemp-derived beverage industry. We're not looking to replace dispensaries. We're not looking to replace even alcohol or anything. This is just another choice, and we want people to enjoy it responsibly. So you put a smaller amount in there, and then people can have a drink. Initially, we tell them to wait 20 minutes because the onset usually takes around 20 minutes to start to feel the effect. And that effect's different for everyone. So some people can drink 4 or 5 and they feel great. Other people have 1 and that's enough for the whole night and they sleep great. But it's that education is critical too. Is like, how do you consume this product? Do you mix it with alcohol? And there's some basic questions. And our suggestion is never mix it with alcohol. Whether people do or not, it's totally up to them. But we recommend don't do that. So that education is something that we do with a direct sales force. We do it through some of our Instagram, where we're actually posting about where we get our product and how we get our product and how we blend and education that way. So it's a constant battle. We'll have posters that say, drink responsibly, just like any other beverage that might alter your mood or alter your emotions at the time. So these are great products. I mean, there's benefits to them. And again, I'm in the craft beer industry, so it's not like I'm thinking this is going to kill my craft beer. It's not. It's basically no more than hard seltzers have really affected the industry, or the proliferation of people who collect bourbon and love bourbon. This all affects the category of wine and spirits and beer. So it's, from our standpoint, it's not a replacement. It's just an alternative when someone wants to try something new for that night. So maybe Monday night's your craft beer night, and Tuesday night's your hemp night, Wednesday night's your NA beer night, however people want to enjoy their life. But people are more health conscious than they used to be. So we have to keep that in mind as we create new products and we go after new industries, is that the mindset of each generation is very, very different. When I grew up, there was beer. That was it.
Yep. So are you guys able to serve the Hop the Wave in your beer garden?
We can. Yep, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you've worked in a number of different industries and scaled different businesses. So what are some of the challenges that are unique to this space and specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. Come from where we came from, because we're an industrial company. When we go out to the industry and we deal with life science companies and microelectronic companies, once you get those clients and you provide a good product, it's consistent business for a very long period of time. Consumer products are very, very different. So it was really educational for us, because not only are you trying to build a brand, but you're trying to make sure you're staying on top of the trends and where consumers are going with their tastes and what they're looking for. So that's the hardest part. I find scaling a business like this has been very, very different. So when we look at scaling this business, we scale it with what we refer to as flexibility. So all the different types of equipment we actually purchase, it's not geared towards just what we're doing today and trying to optimize and minimize that cost per unit to produce. It's really saying, okay, if we got into other products, does this piece of equipment allow us to have the flexibility to package that way? So we bought up a cartoner that puts the cans into a box. Well, we didn't just buy a basic one. We bought one that can do case boxes. Well, in the beer industry, where we are in craft, no one ever does a case box. I mean, that's unheard of. But as you get into some of these other industries, they do case boxes, and we can do variety pack case boxes. So the mentality has to be very different in this industry than where I came from. It's all about flexibility. It's all about being able to shift and move. We put a pasteurizer in as opposed to using preservatives because we really believe that people are health conscious, that they don't want added things in their drinks, regardless of what the drink is. So if someday we go into just making juices, we want to pasteurize. So when we decided on pasteurization, it wasn't because it was the least expensive way to get into an industry. It was, this is the product, this is the process and the equipment that gives us the most flexibility to succeed as a company, regardless of the products that we're making. So I find that that's a big challenge because you're trying to project out a couple of years. Hey, what might people do next? Which is really hard because I have a hard time understanding what people are going to do next month. But to think what they're going to, how that evolution will change 2 or 3 times, it's just creating a tremendous amount of flexibility in your manufacturing, your production, so you can react quickly. And that's really critical in this industry.
So I always like to end all these conversations with asking, besides your own products, what other beverages do you have in your fridge, or what other products do you enjoy?
Yeah. In this category, there's, I like the mocktails that are out there. There's some really good, flavorful mocktails that we enjoy at home. Even some of them who are not hemp, that have no hemp D9 in them at all. They're just a mocktail. So there's some really cool ones out there. I do like the Long Coast brand, which is also another Maine brand. That one's really good. I do like the Elevado. They've got a couple flavors that are really enjoyable. So those are the most ones. Again, we're in a fortunate situation because I'm a co-packer too, right? So I get to try these beverages.
Yes.
All the time with even people we don't eventually co-pack for, I get to try their product ahead of time. So yeah, I would say the mocktails to me seem to be the most intriguing category because you can get like an espresso martini that tastes just like an espresso martini with no alcohol in it, which is kind of really cool. So people are doing some really fun things in the mocktail area, and I think even that category, I like that, they're getting the Long Coast and things like that. But that category, I think, is really, really fun to be in. It's a lot more complex because there's a lot more flavors going on to try to duplicate like an espresso martini or rum punch or something like that. But when someone does it right, God, they taste so good. They taste like a regular they taste like a regular mocktail or cocktail that just doesn't have the alcohol. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Alan. It's been a real treat getting to know you and Hop the Wave as well. And until next time, guys, cheers.
Thanks, Lars.